He used this formal term when excited. "It is the most marvellous cypripedium in the whole world, and, sir, I have discovered it. A healthy root of that plant will be worth £20,000." "That's better than gold mining," I said. "Well, have you got the root?" Brother John shook his head sadly as he answered, "No such luck." "How's that you have the flower?" "I'll tell you, Allan. For a year past and more I have been collecting in the Black District of Kilwa, and found some wondrous things. Yes, wonderful. At last, about 300 miles inland, I came to a tribe, or rather a people, that no white man had ever visited. They are called the Mazitu, a numerous and warlike people of bastard Zulu blood." "I've heard of them," I interrupted. "They broke north before the days of Senzangakona, 200 years or more ago." "Well, I could make myself understood among them, because they still talk corrupt Zulu, as do all the tribes in those parts. At first they wanted to kill me, but let me go because they thought that I was mad." "Everyone thinks that I am mad, Allan. It's a kind of public delusion." "Whereas I think that I am sane and that most other people are mad." "A private delusion," I suggested hurriedly, as I did not wish to discuss Brother John's sanity. "Well, go on about the Mazitu." "Later they discovered that I had skill in medicine, and their king, Bausi, came to me to be treated for a great external tumour. I risked an operation and cured him. It was anxious work, for if he had died I should have died too, though that would not have troubled me very much," and he sighed. "Of course, from that moment I was supposed to be a great magician. Also Bausi made a blood brotherhood with me, transfusing some of his blood into my veins and some of mine into his. I only hope he has not inoculated me with his tumours, which are congenital. So I became Bausi and Bausi became me. In other words, I was as much chief of the Mazitu as he was, and shall remain so all my life." "That might be useful," I said reflectively, "but go on." "I learned that on the western boundary of the Mazitu territory were great swamps, that beyond these swamps was a lake called Kirua, and beyond that a large and fertile land, supposed to be an island, with a mountain in its centre. This land is known as Pongo, and so are the people who live there." "That is the native name for the gorilla, isn't it?" I asked. "At least so a fellow who has been on the West Coast told me." "Indeed. Then that's strange, as you will see. Now these Pongos are supposed to be great magicians, and the god they worship is said to be a gorilla, which, if you are right, accounts for their name. Or rather," he went on, "they have two gods. The other is that flower you see there. Whether the flower with the monkey's head on it was the first god and suggested the worship of the beast itself, or vice versa, I don't know. Indeed, I know very little. Just what I was told by the Mazitu and a man who called himself a Pongo chief. No more." "What did they say?" "The Mazitu said that the Pongo people are devils who come by the secret channels through the reeds in canoes, and stole their children and women whom they sacrificed to their gods. Sometimes, too, they made raids upon them at night, howling like hyenas. The men they killed, and the women and children they took away. The Mazitu want to attack them, but cannot do so, because they are not water people and have no canoes, and therefore are unable to reach the island, if it is an island. Also they told me about the wonderful flower which grows in the place where the ape god lives, and is worshipped like the god. They had the story of it from some of their people who had been enslaved and escape." "Did you try to get to the island?" I asked. "Yes, Allan. That is, I went to the edge of the reeds which lie at the end of a long slope of plain where the lake begins. Here I stopped for some time catching butterflies and collecting plants. One night when I was camped there by myself, for none of my men would remain so near the Pongo country after sunset, I woke up with a sense that I was no longer alone. I crept out of my tent, and by the light of the moon, which was setting, for dawn drew near, I saw a man who leant upon the handle of a very wide-bladed spear, which was taller than himself, a big man over 6 feet 2 high, I should say, and broad in proportion. He wore a long white cloak reaching from his shoulders almost to the ground. On his head was a tight-fitting cap with lappets, also white. In his ears were rings of copper or gold, and on his wrists bracelets of the same metal. His skin was intensely black, but the features were not at all negroid. They were prominent and finely cut, the nose being sharp and the lips quite thin, indeed of an Arab type. His left hand was bandaged, and on his face was an expression of great anxiety. Lastly, he appeared to be about 50 years of age. So still did he stand that I began to wonder whether he were one of those ghosts which the Mazitu swore the Pongo wizards sent out to haunt their country. For a long time we stared at each other, for I was determined that I would not speak first or show any concern. At last he spoke in a low, deep voice, and in Mazitu, or a language so similar that I found it easy to understand. "Is not your name Dogeetah, O white lord? Are you not a master of medicine?" "Yes," I answered, "but who are you who dare to wake me from my sleep?" "Lord, I am Kalubi, the chief of the Pongo, a great man in my own land yonder." "Then why do you come here alone at night, Kalubi, chief of the Pongo?" "Why do you come here alone, white lord?" he answered evasively. "What do you want anyway?" I asked. "O Dogeetah, I have been hurt. I want you to cure me," and he looked at his bandaged hand. "Lay down that spear and open your robe that I may see you have no knife." He obeyed, throwing the spear to some distance. "Now unwrap the hand." He did so. I lit a match, the sight of which seemed to frighten him greatly, although he asked no questions about it, and by its light examined the hand. The first joint of the second finger was gone. From the appearance of the stump, which had been cauterized and was tied tightly with a piece of flexible grass, I judged that it had been bitten off. "What did this?" I asked. "Monkey," he answered, "poisonous monkey. Cut off the finger, O Dogeetah, or tomorrow I die." "Why do you not tell your own doctors to cut off the finger, you who are Kalubi, chief of the Pongo?" "No, no," he replied, shaking his head. "They cannot do it. It is not lawful, and I cannot do it. For if the flesh is black, the hand must come off too, and if the flesh is black at the wrist, then the arm must be cut off." I sat down on my camp stool and reflected. Really I was waiting for the sun to rise, since it was useless to attempt an operation in that light. The man Kalubi thought that I had refused his petition, and became terribly agitated. "Be merciful, white lord," he prayed. "Do not let me die. I am afraid to die. Life is bad, but death is worse. Oh, if you refuse me, I will kill myself here before you, and then my ghost will haunt you till you die also of fear and come to join me. What fee do you ask? Gold or ivory or slaves? Say, and I will give it." "Be silent," I said, for I saw that if he went on thus he would throw himself into a fever which might cause the operation to prove fatal. For the same reason I did not question him about many things I should have liked to learn. I lit my fire and boiled the instruments. He thought I was making magic. By the time that everything was ready the sun was up. "Now," I said, "let me see how brave you are." Well, Allan, I performed that operation, removing the finger at the base where it joins the hand, as I thought there might be something in his story of the poison. Indeed, as I found afterwards on dissection, and can show you, for I have the thing in spirits, there was, for the blackness of which he spoke, a kind of mortification I presume had crept almost to the joint, though the flesh beyond was healthy enough. Certainly that Kalubi was a plucky fellow. He sat like a rock and never even winced. Indeed, when he saw that the flesh was sound, he uttered a great sigh of relief. After it was all over he turned a little faint, so I gave him some spirits of wine mixed with water, which revived him. "O Lord Dogeetah," he said, as I was bandaging his hand, while I